Marco Haro Crespo, and I represent the prosecution. We asked that the defense motion to exclude Officer Doherty's observations made a month before the defendant was accused be denied, because those observations were not obtained in violation of the defendant's Fourth Amendment right. On February 22nd, the defendant was shopping for plastic baggies at a local supermarket. There, the defendant was seen by Officer Doherty. Officer Doherty immediately left the supermarket and noticed the defendant's car in the parking lot. Once at the car, Officer Doherty was able to look in through the passenger side window that was open 2 inches and see a blue backpack and a jacket. Officer Doherty then steps on the passenger side tire and hoists her body over the hood of the car. Now, there, Officer Doherty was able to see a baggie of orange-colored pills, a roll of money, and a notebook with a list of names and numbers. This was no violation.
All right, counsel, let me stop you briefly. You say the officer hoisted himself over the hood of the car. Isn't he, at that point, going beyond plain view? Isn't he going through contortions just to be able to see something?
No, Your Honor. The police officer merely manipulated her own body to receive a better vantage point at items that were in plain view. This is seen in cases such as People v. Rogers, where police were looking for a van of which they received a brief description. They were then able to shine a flashlight into the van only because the defendant was inside of the car and opened the doors. Opening of the doors merely allowed a better vantage point as Officer Doherty climbing onto the hood of the car.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, these objects were in plain view, with no expectation of privacy. In Katz v. U.S., the court weighed 2 factors. First, had the defendant shown an actual subjective expectation of privacy? And second, was this expectation consistent with society's view of a reasonable expectation of privacy? In Katz, the defendant was in a phone booth, where his conversation was shielded from being overheard by a casual passerby and soundproof glass. Now, that is not the case here. Officer Doherty merely looked into the clear windshield of the car with his flashlight without entering or disturbing the defendant's property in any way. There was no reasonable expectation of privacy because the objects were clearly visible from the front of the vehicle. Ray Concha could have taken more precautions in order to conceal the interior of the car, such as putting up shades that would absolutely avoid cases such as the matter of the FRBRK, Katz, Horton v. California, and the fact that climbing onto the hood of the car was indeed a trespass. But as seen in United States v. Dunn, a trespass in which officers climbed over a fence into an open field that was private property was not considered a violation of the Fourth Amendment, as climbing onto the hood of the car of the defendant is no violation of the Fourth Amendment. In the matter of the welfare of BRK, it was disputed whether or not it was legal to look into a home. Where in our case here today, we're dealing with a car with a much lowered expectation of privacy, due to the fact that the interior of the car is absolutely visible to the public from a 360-degree view. Now, the defense has also said that the defendant has taken multiple precautions in order to conceal the items that were inside of the car, tinting her windshield and parking in a secluded area. But this does not matter because there is a lowered expectation of privacy inside of the car due to the interior of the car being visible to the public. Now, the defendant could have taken more precautions besides the one that were already taken. The defendant could have completely concealed the interior of the car by putting up shades, or even by just putting all of the items into a backpack. Your Honor, the defendant had no reasonable expectation of privacy in her car that was parked in a public parking lot, with the window partially open. With these simple facts, it becomes clear that Officer Doherty witnessed what was not an infringement of the defendant's rights, so I ask you to suppress the motion I ask you to deny the motion to suppress the observations made by Officer Doherty. Thank you.
One thing you want to
conceal the interior. In People v. Rogers, police were looking for a van, of which they received a brief description. They were then able to locate the van and shine a flashlight into it, which revealed illegal pornographic images. This was no violation of the
Two.
defendant's Fourth Amendment rights, and did not count as a search that required a warrant, because the images were in plain view.
But how can you say it's in plain view, counsel, if the officer had to go to such lengths as climbing on the car and leaning over the hood in order to see it? What indication is there that this defendant had any expectation of privacy?
Can you repeat the question?
You're saying that there's no expectation of privacy. How do you draw that conclusion if the officer couldn't see it when he was standing by the car and had to climb up and look in through the front windshield? Isn't there some expectation of privacy in a car?
Yes, Your Honor, but it is a much lowered expectation of privacy in comparison to a home or private property such as a barn or anything else. But in this case, Officer Doherty merely manipulated his own body to receive a better vantage point of items that were in plain view inside of the car without having to manipulate any of the items inside of the car that would have given him a better view at the things inside.
Go ahead.
Officer Doherty did shine a flashlight into the car, similar to United States v. Dunn, in which a flashlight was used to look into a barn. This was no violation of the Fourth Amendment, because the Fourth Amendment protects a home and its connecting parts, where privacy is expected. But in a car, there is a lowered expectation of privacy, because the interior of the car is visible to the public from a 360-degree view. In United States v. Copeland, an officer was standing on an airfield. There, the officer saw a plane. When the officer took a closer look inside of the plane, the officer saw illegal marijuana. This was no violation of the Fourth Amendment because of two reasons. First, the officer was lawfully present, as Officer Doherty was when he was standing in a public parking lot. The items were in plain view, as were the baggie of orange-colored pills inside of the defendant's car. Now, the officer was lawfully present where any person had a right to be, and did not at all enter into the plane, as Officer Doherty did not enter into the car. Officer Doherty committed no violation by shining a flashlight into the defendant's passenger side window or into his front windshield, just observing items that were in plain view, with no expectation.
Counsel, you keep saying in plain view, but the court is troubled by the fact that some of the facts that the court has heard from the defense are that there were tinted windows, it was parked in a dark, secluded part of a public parking lot. You've acknowledged that the only thing that the officer could see from standing in the parking lot were a backpack and a jacket. So the court would wonder if there isn't some expectation of privacy that's been demonstrated by the tinted windows and parking it in such a secluded part of the parking lot.
Well, Your Honor, if the defendant did indeed expect privacy and really did not want at all the items inside of the car to be viewed by any casual passerby, as Officer Doherty is able to see the items inside, the defendant could have taken multiple precautions, such as put up shades on the windows that would completely conceal the interior of the car, or just entirely put all the items inside of her backpack, not exposing them to the general public.
Okay.
The defendant had no reasonable expectation of privacy in a car that was parked in a public parking lot, with the window partially open. Officer Doherty's observations were lawfully obtained and should be admitted. Thank you.